Hey, Pat Welsh here. It's Tuesday. You know what that means? Taco Tuesday. Take action, crush obstacles. Well, welcome to the latest episode of Warrior Servant Leader podcast. We're glad you're here. And today's going to be kind of an interesting one. Before we get started, shout out to our huge supporters at Law Enforcement Today, uh, Police Tribune, and Blue Lives Matter. They're great organizations that support law enforcement. If you're not subscribing to them, you should be. So, today, what are we going to talk about? Well, I call the episode Quit Tiptoeing Through Life. And what I mean is it's time to stand up, show up, and start living your life at home, at work, in your faith life, in your community intentionally and striving for that excellence of being a one percenter. Now, I know when cops hear the term one percenter, you automatically go to thinking you're talking about outlaw motorcycle gangs. Those are one percenters, and they're violent, they're criminals, they're outlaws. And why in the world would I want to be a one percenter? Well, that's not what I'm talking about being a one percenter that is out there to intimidate other people and demand respect and to stay out of your way. That's not what I'm talking about. When I talk about being a one percenter in your daily life and quit tiptoeing around through that life, or another way of looking at it is that if you've been to a park and you've been on the lazy river ride and you get in that little canoe or raft or whatever it is, and you just go with the current and let it take you wherever that current is going, that's like tiptoeing around through life. Because on that lazy river, where do you end up at? You end up right where you started, which is kind of nowhere. And that's tiptoeing. That's being lazy. And if you want to be a one percenter, you want to be that person of excellence, it takes a lot of hard work. And one of the things I want to share with you today is what is preventing you from being that one percenter, being that one percenter in your agency, or your agency being a one percenter in the bigger picture of law enforcement nationally and internationally. So that's what we're going to dive into today. And I'm not going to hold back any punches on this one. I'm going to challenge you directly because that's what it takes is intentionally identifying what are obstacles that are preventing you from living the life that you want at work, at home, in your faith life, in your community life. So one of the first things we need to do is identify what are those obstacles that we need to crush, that we need to take action on that are preventing you from being a one percenter. The ones that I've kind of identified in my own life and that in researching and studying the lives of other people who are in those top echelon uh, positions in various professions, in their personal lives. One of the biggest ones I have struggled with myself is control, and usually it's the lack of control over my time, control over other people, control over expectations that I have of myself, that other people have of me, and that it's just like you feel that you want to do more and you want to accomplish more, but, and then fill in the blank. And one of the biggest ones is, man, I just don't have the time. I don't have the people. I don't have the resources. And those are all excuses because we do have a lot of control, starting with ourselves. We have control of how we think and what we think. Another thing is another obstacle that a lot of times we don't have control over is change. Change in politics, politicians, change in case law in the arena of law enforcement, uh, change in courts, how they're made up, and what their, quite frankly, agendas are. Change in public opinion. One day, 9/11 hits, and law enforcement and firefighters and first responders of all sorts are now our heroes, and here we are, 24 years later, and we're villains in many communities. Another thing that we don't have a lot of control over, in a way, is what we have to do in performing our jobs as cops. What we see, what we hear, what we experience, all leaves a mark on us. Some people call it trauma. There's many names for it, but we are affected physically, spiritually, psychologically, emotionally by the job. And that can be an obstacle of wanting to attain and maintain a mindset of excellence and an environment of excellence, that one percenter in your personal life and in your professional life. Another thing is, and this is huge, and again, you don't have control over other people, but you do have control over yourself. And one of those areas of control is in leadership, or the lack of. John Maxwell says everything rises and falls on leadership. And what is leadership? Being a person of influence and impact. And everything rises and falls on that. So those are some of the major obstacles that I've seen in my own life and I've seen in the lives of others. My question to you is, what obstacles are you facing, particularly in those areas I just mentioned? And what are you doing about it? How can you crush those obstacles? Well, the first thing is understand and define who you are. You are not your job. And so many cops define themselves by that badge. I would ask young folks when we were doing interviews in the hiring process, or after you get on the job, I would ask, and I asked myself this question during the course of my career. If you weren't a cop, what would you do? And if your response is, I don't know, then that's a red flashing light to me that you define yourself of who you are by what you do. And that if you weren't a cop, you don't know who you are or what you would do. So if that's where you're at, sit down and really reflect on that. If you couldn't be in law enforcement, what would you do? Because what you do doesn't define who you are. Who you are should define how you do your job, not the other way around. Another thing to consider in crushing this obstacle of attaining that life of excellence that you want is understand that life is a journey. It's not a destination. This is not some initiative that you have like on a police department for the next 3 to 4 years. We're going to do X, Y, and Z to reduce, gun violence or to reduce violent crime, whatever. Life is a journey. There is no destination where you can go, I've arrived and I can kick back and be on that lazy river ride because that lazy river is taking me to where I'm already at. And that is a life of excellence. What's another thing? Another obstacle in uh, crushing your attempt to live this life of excellence. There's a great book that it's called Ego is the Enemy. And I know some people, there's other books out there that say ego is not the enemy. I'm in the camp that a ego can be your enemy and most likely will be. Ego and envy, to be where someone else has already arrived, that you see somebody or something that you want to attain. And there's a fine line between wanting that and needing that. And it's usually your ego, which is self centeredness. If you don't keep it in check, then that's going to be an enemy, an obstacle for you to achieve that excellence because you're going to be wanting something that somebody else already has, and they're not on the same journey you are. So you may be going down, that fork in the road. You may be taking the wrong path. And when I say what do you need versus what do you want, you literally need to sit down and write out what are things that you actually need. And sometimes what you need is going to take a lot of effort to get you where you want to go. It might be you need more education. It might mean that you need to reevaluate relationships. But only you know what you need and only you know what you want. When I teach around the country on interacting with people with disabilities, so autism and other intellectual and developmental disabilities, the number one thing we talk about is what does the person need? Because if you can satisfy and identify the need, then you can solve the problem, not the other way around. You need to identify what do you need personally. You need to identify what does your agency need as a entity, as an agency. What does your community need? And if you can identify those fundamental needs, then you can start working on, okay, now what do you want? And maybe what you want isn't the best thing for you or is not attainable right now until you solve and fulfill the needs first. Now, in the workplace, typically this is what your agency needs. And you want to be a one percenter agency. You want to be in the top echelon of law enforcement agencies in the country. What do you need? 4 things: skills, resources, systems, and core principles. What you need is also to focus on people, your processes, that's management stuff, systems and processes, leadership, communication, and a continuity plan. People call it succession plan. You don't want your agency's excellence to rest upon individual personalities because when those people leave, then your structure is going to collapse. People, processes, management kind of structure things, leadership, communication, and continuity. Here's the big thing though. All that has to be directed towards your core principles, your agency's core principles. What are those core principles? Number one is mindset. Whatever that takes, whatever that looks like. If you have slogans, that your mindset is based on slogans, or I started a quotable quotes section on LinkedIn every day, and if it's a jingle that is your core principle that sets your mindset, it's not going to last. For example, my mindset, this whole podcast is directed on being a warrior, servant, and leader, and constantly reminding myself what that means. Stand up, show up, defend what I believe. That's a core principle. That's a warrior mindset. The servant mindset of putting the wants and needs of others before my own. That's a mindset, core principle. Leadership, be a person of influence and impact. Those are principles of a mindset. Another core principle your agency should have, and you should have personally, all these apply across the board, whether it's personal or professional, but your agency should have a growth oriented core principles. And when I say growth oriented, that's from performance, problem identification and solving, and adding value to your community and to your agency. You should have an orientation towards always striving to be better in those areas, be better in performance, be better in problem identification and solving, be better at adding value to your community and your agency, because you're never going to arrive. You're never going to go, we're the best and now we can rest. Not going to happen. If you're not growing, you are going to start dying. It's not stagnant. You're going to start dying. Another core principle that your agency has to have, and amongst its rank from top to bottom, that you need in your personal life, is to be open-minded and vulnerable. Open-minded and vulnerable. You're not always right. And even when you are right, don't be an asshole. Be open-minded to other people's opinions. Be open-minded to understanding that other people think differently and arrive at different conclusions than you. That doesn't make them your enemy. Admit your weaknesses and face reality. So when you are wrong, own it, and then strive to be better. All these are core principles. This is what is going to be driving what you expect and accept out of yourself and out of your agency, out of your personnel, out of your community, which leads to the final core principle. Be disciplined and consistent in the four principles I just already mentioned. Don't have situational ethics. Don't let the tide determine, we're going to change this mindset. We're going to change this growth-oriented principle. Principles don't get changed simply because there's been some adversity. That's why they're called principles. So, what do you need to ask? What do you need to discuss? What do you need to answer in how you're going to pursue this excellence and crush these obstacles? Right now, if I told you to write down on a piece of paper, what are your agency's core values? What are you going to write down? And if you don't know, then that's a starting place. What should your core values be in your agency? So if you're in a position to gather people together in your agency and start this process, This is where you start. What are our core values? And if you have 20 people sitting at the table, you're going to come up with 20 different core values. Everybody has their own built in moral compass, if you will, of what is core to them. What do they value? And you write them all down and then start reducing that and come up with your top 3 to 5 core values for your agency. Come up with the 3 to 4 core values for your personal life and write them down. Next thing, in order to crush the obstacles that are facing you to be this 1%er, personally and professionally, ask yourself and write it down. What do you want to accomplish in the next 5 years? Then write down, what do you want to accomplish in the next 3 years? What do you want to accomplish in the next 1 year? What do you want to accomplish in the next 90 days? And write it all down. Don't write down how you're going to accomplish it. Just write down what you want to accomplish. 5 years, 3 years, 1 year, 90 days. In that order. Don't start at 90 days and go out to 5 years. Start big picture 5 years from now. And if you really want to be daring, what do you want to accomplish in the next 10 years? Then sit down and write down all the obstacles to achieving what you want to do in 5 years, in 3 years, 1 year, 90 days. Write down what are the obstacles preventing you from achieving that goal that you believe you can reach. Again, don't write down how we're going to overcome those obstacles. Just write down the obstacles. And if there's 10, pick the top 3. Reduce it down to what are the 3 most critical top obstacles that we have. Then the next thing you want to do is sit down and write out, okay, now what's going to be your strategy to overcome these obstacles? That high level plan to meet your objectives, not a step-by-step process. What is your strategy? And remember, when I was saying, is it going to be, well, we need to focus more on people. We need to focus more on processes. Our strategy has to be in management structure. Our strategy has to do with the bigger picture of leadership. Our strategy has to do with communication. We need to be better communicators or have better avenues of communication. Or our strategy is we need continuity. You know, on my department, over a period of 26 years, I had, I think it was 7 or 8 acting or actual police chiefs. It was a roller coaster ride. Every 2 to 3 years, there'd be a change in the upper command structure. And it brought in people with different objectives, different views, different values, different ideas of how to accomplish things. That made it very difficult for the agency to run, for the community. And so that would be, if I sat down and said, hey, what's one of our biggest obstacles? It would be that continuity of leadership for more than 2 or 3 years, let alone for after when I retire and I'm gone. So once you've identified that strategy, you know, skills, resources, people, whatever it is you need to develop an action plan, then you can start working on the step-by-step action plan. This is not an easy process. It's not a quick process. It takes a lot of time and effort. I mean, what I just went through, that's just the tip of the iceberg of the process to getting to that 1%er status. And you can't do this alone. This is not a one person, what's the word I want to use? Endeavor, one person act. Uh, you're not on a white horse riding to the rescue of a damsel in distress. It takes time, it takes energy, it takes focus, it takes commitment, it takes consistency. And I told you earlier, this is not a lazy river ride. I would liken it more to the baddest ass roller coaster ride stretch over your entire life, particularly in your personal life. If it's your professional life, it's going to be a badass roller coaster ride over 25, 30 years, maybe even more. You're going to need help. You're going to need encouragement. You're going to need stamina. You're going to need mentors. You're going to need coaches. You cannot get through this journey alone. And here's the thing we most often, never really think about. All those things I just said, to be an encourager, to be a mentor, to be coaching people, you can be that for someone else in their personal life, in your professional life. Sometimes you're going to be on the receiving end of all these things. Other times you're going to be on the giving end. So don't be afraid to ask for help. Don't be afraid to step up and offer help. You've heard the expression that it takes a village to raise a child. Well, it takes a community of like-minded people to strive for, attain, maintain excellence in your personal and professional life. So that's a Reader's Digest version of becoming a one percenter. If you actually want to bring to your agency or in your personal life, I have a whole 40-hour course just on this one topic: achieving excellence in 21st century policing. So reach out, LinkedIn, email me, pjwelshllc at gmail.com. On LinkedIn, I have a calendar. And hit me up, get on my calendar, and let's talk. And let's journey to this excellence together. So I hope you really got something positive and encouraging, some thought-provoking message. And as always, I appreciate you download the podcast, leave comments. I'd love for you to leave reviews so we can grow this group, this community of warrior servant leaders to all sorts of other folks. I mean, right now, and I love you guys for this, we are on 4 continents and in 9 different countries right now of subscribers. Let's keep growing it together. And I say this very sincerely, reach out to me. I'd love to hear your story. I'd love to hear the journey that you're traveling on. And if you need help or you want to give help, what a great community to be a part of. So, love you all. Have a great Taco Tuesday, and we will get back together next week.